Folks, a little late to the game, but we're getting started here. We're going to do some cartography for Eberron, crystals and Mabar. So give me a second here to check my signal, make sure things are coming through. I'm going to do my spiel and then we'll dive into some cartography for here in a little bit. So just go through my spiel here real quick since my signal sounds good. My name is Phil Kearney. Hey, I'm an artist. I've turned into a content creator for tabletop RPGs. I currently create PDFs for 5th edition that I publish on the DMsGuild. There is a wide sample of content that I've produced in the description down below. You can click on any of those links. They'll take you to the stuff that I've made. If you're on a mobile phone, you can click the eye icon on the far right hand side of the product pages. Or if you're on a desktop or tablet, you can click on the full preview link underneath the cover image of the product page. Both of those will open up a PDF that will allow you to view 100% of the content, cover to cover. It's all there for you to read. There's probably about 150 illustrations between all of that. So what we do is we design games, we put them into PDFs, we then do page layouts, and then fill in all of the blank spaces on the pages with illustrations, just like you can see in all those books. If you think any of those ideas are cool, or if you just like the art, please make a purchase to help support me doing more of it. If you don't, thanks for looking. So, cheers. I think, let's see. So that's the spiel. So let's get into this. I need to fix my screens real quick so you can see what my menu stuff is doing. Honestly, the best, since YouTube hates artists and hates slow design stuff, the best thing you can do is to like, subscribe, hit the bell, and drop a comment. Either you show up here while I'm live and just say hey, or if there's anything you like seeing, or if there's anything you ran across that you thought was cool, drop a comment down below. Let me know. Just trying to do everything I can to stay relevant in a post-artist YouTube world. So I'm just gonna keep building stuff. Hopefully this will end up being a good resume sort of thing for when I start doing Kickstarters. If anyone questions whether I'm going to be capable of completing a project when I begin it, hopefully we'll be able to point to these streams to show the walkthrough process of taking an idea and building it out into a completed product. So right now we're working on the Eberron Underground dungeon, the Carnathi Laboratory, and you can see here the gridding that we have, the 5-foot squares, the door, all the doorways that we've built. We'll have to build the drop-down doors. Here's the corroded area that's been compromised by the necrotic forces, energies of Mabar. Here's an area that's in the process of becoming tainted. And then here we have a stairway that goes up to the surface where there's guards that prevent you from coming down. Here's an elevator shaft that you can take. Here's a flooded, goopy, gross waterway that we've been working on that it floods this tunnel. Tunnel is blocked by a drop-down portcullis, like a blast door, but the forces of Mabar have broken through the walls and have corroded the stonework through here. So now if characters wanted to hold their breath and get into this goop, they could find their way into the facility via the waterways. So we're painting water right now. If you check the stream in all the previous maps that we've built, we've consistently been creating this water, this appearance, this just watery look of stuff that we've got going on. So we're just going to continue that effort today. So I don't have much of an agenda other than pushing pixels around and trying to make swirly, oily doobly-doos, and from there I'll probably just end up rambling on about whatever it is that I end up rambling on about. So if you got anything on your mind, be welcome to drop a comment into the live chat. Happy to hang out with folks. I started doing this actually with the Core Mechanics book over on Twitch, and I ended up Twitch didn't feel right, so I wanted to switch gears and come over to YouTube, and it turns out YouTube hates artists. So where are you gonna win? You know, this is where my flag has been planted right now. So I'm gonna stick it through and see how shit pans out. But I started doing this because the 5-color mana spell point variant rule core mechanics book had like a docket of like 60 illustrations that I had to do, and I'd never done a project that required so much illustration. So I knew that I would have an issue with maintaining momentum, so I decided if I started streaming, it would hold me accountable every day to show up and push pixels, whether I liked it or not, because the project's got to get done. So I liked how that worked out, and it ended up being a really fun reference. But then I realized that Twitch destroys content after a while, and if I was going to have it available for folks, that has to be on YouTube. So instead of monkeying around with reloading into YouTube, I'm just going to put stuff on YouTube so I don't have to worry about doubling the effort. So we'll see how that works out. Maybe it'll change in the future. But the main point is that there's this Eberron project, the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration Supplement, and the Martial Powers project. Between these 3 projects, it's probably a docket of, I'd reckon, 40, 50, maybe 100 illustrations. Hard to say right now. We aren't through with layouts yet. Speaking of which, we're going to be back on tomorrow in the morning in about 10 hours or so to continue Spelljammer ship token production. And on Saturday, we will be on in the morning in about 48, no, 30, in about 34, 34 hours-ish. And we'll be doing book layouts for the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration document. So it's done with its edits. So that drops it into the next step in the process, which is layouts. So that's where we'll be at. We'll do that for a couple hours. And once those layouts are done, we'll start doing on-page, like we'll be exporting the pages from the book here into Photoshop and painting basically directly onto the pages. And illustrating whatever seems to catch our attention the most on that particular page. So I'm really looking forward to beginning that process. So I got to get through the page layouts first, and now that we've gone through and built out the scaffolding for all the sections, subsections, charts, and tables. We'll be able to convert the text into its proper font formatting and coloring, and then we'll be pushing the text around to fit on the pages. And I'm not sure, it's a 100 some odd page document right now, so I reckon after we push all the text into proper position, it'll probably end up being 120 pages, and then from there we'll be able to see how much space is sitting on each page that's going to require some sort of visual asset to make the page feel whole. So we'll be going through that process here. The page layout's beginning this Saturday. I reckon we'll probably be done with page layouts early April. And then we'll be just diving into the thick of illustration for Spelljammer for however long it takes. So I'm hoping that means that the thing will be published. Boy, I'd love for it to be published in like at the beginning of June, but I honestly have no idea how long it's going to take. There's no way to tell until we get into it. So stay tuned, like and subscribe for that journey. It'll be a lot of ideation, a lot of doodling, a lot of intuitive growth, and we'll see if we can evolve Pokemon style mid book and end up becoming stronger artists as a result of it. And consistently so far, any book that I've worked on that requires that's more than 30 pages has led to me becoming a stronger artist at the end result of the book. So it's as a content creator, I love creating these books. As a designer, I love creating new system mechanics and ways to engage with. These have all been 5th edition content, and 5th edition, more than any other edition of D&D, really needs more depth. So I've been very proud of the work that we've been building there. And then as an artist, I'm incredibly excited about what we may discover about our own techniques, processes, or intuition in the creation process. So yeah, really looking forward to it. Hey, Hernetico, man, it's good to see you. Yeah, it's coming along pretty good. So far, so good anyway. We had the Monday night was a particularly good session. The Muse was really just running the table, and she helped us throw down some really cool patterns. Right now, I'm just trying to smooth it all out so that it looks, so it doesn't look like slop. I mean, there's chaos, but good art is going to have intentional chaos. It's not just it's not like it is an Andy Warhol painting or something I'm building here. It has intention, and there's purpose behind it all. So we're just trying to build out some cool assets here, stuff that folks are going to want to end up looking at. I think a good project. I can consider it a success if the art components that we put into the book is stuff that people just want to look at on their own, and so I think these maps have been hitting that mark in spades. I used to when I was young and I first started getting into DMing and started picking up modules in second edition back in the 80s and 90s. I would just this is how I knew I was going to end up being an artist. I would just stare at this stuff and just fall into the fantasy of what does it look like to be actually in that dungeon? How would I actually narrate this stuff on top of the visual elements that are provided on the page? What is it that makes this dungeon alive? And that's that kind of bleeds into the ideas about like random encounters, themes, both spatial and societal traits that are inside of the ecosystems that these limited spaces have. They kind of have their own language and their own like ecological balance behind them that the characters then come in and just like raffle stomp. It's like, oh, what a loving balanced ecosystem you have here. What can I do to convert it directly into gold pieces? So that's capitalism in D&D characters. So I think that's actually I never really made that parallel about how corporate yuppie capital like seeking capital gain life in America was really about in the 80s and 90s, and how culturally we keep moving further into this more collective socialism, social merit sort of space. I mean, cash is obviously very exciting, but it's more about, I would say culturally, it's more about status than wealth. Wealth denotes status. You gain status through wealth, but you can also gain status through followers, even though you yourself, may be poor initially, but once you start accumulating 6 digits worth of followers on a channel like this, you aren't poor anymore. So it's like status leads to wealth, as opposed to back then wealth led to status. So it makes sense that earlier editions of the game would be keyed more around gathering wealth and doing things with it to increase your personal power, as opposed to this current zeitgeist is more about individual character expression, and not even having to specific like 5th edition has gone so far as to preferring story goals. And like Strixhaven's a really great example of this, is that you get into like one moderate fight, one moderate combat, and some ability checks, and you gain a level. Like super light requirements through these goals to gain levels, and that is just such a continuously shifting perspective about level gains in D&D in general. And I know that this is a pretty isolated event inside of the WotC sphere, that a lot of other games just don't even have that kind of mechanical history of change. You know, like a lot of games have experience points that, like, every time you play, you gain 2 points that you can apply to advancing your character, or like so few games actually like accumulate points that then churn into a block of predefined improvements. Like, that is becoming less and less of the narrative, like the meta of how acquiring power and expressing advancement in a game. It's fascinating, honestly. Like, you can see back in the 90s, like, XP equals level, and then convert that into a kit, like a bundle of upgrades for the character chassis that you're kitting out. I think it was World of Darkness was one of the earlier games that really moved away from this level system into acquiring points that could be applied to attributes, skills, and other dots on your character sheet that would result in having more dice that you can throw in circumstances. And I think as World of Darkness increased in popularity, more and more systems started to adopt that method. And you know, there's no wrong way to gain power in a fantasy narrative, but I think the way that you accumulate that power really is like a defining characteristic of like what that game intends. Like, if the goal is to accumulate power, players and DMs really need to be paying attention to what's the most efficient way to attain that power, which I think is so interesting about moving, like D&D specifically, WotC's stuff, moving towards this story goal idea, where it's pretty much up to the DM or the content that the DM is working through to tell you when they gain a level, as opposed to like Beck Me, like the old original box set D&D was like, there's a shitload of gold, and you're gonna have to accumulate this much of it, and when you get it, you have to throw it away and not make any use of it. So there was like a crap ton of gold because you needed gold, and you needed to burn it off and like throw it away with no benefit. Like, you had to just literally just throw it on the street and say, I bring wealth to your community, and everyone goes, you're awesome. And that's what that renown is, how you gained your level. And but then you needed gold on top of that to actually buy shit. So you can't just level up everything and run around naked with a stick and, you know, be a 20th level character with a stick. I mean, you could. I've never seen a game run that way, because like accumulating loot and equipment, and back in those days they expected you to be saving up to create a fortress and to afford people to make that fortress run smoothly. And like, it was a gold greedy world. You threw away gold to gain stats on your character sheet, but at some point it became more important for you to just literally accumulate gold so that you could just afford, so you can afford to keep, so you wouldn't go bankrupt, basically. But as they stripped out these domain mechanics from the game, they didn't scale back the gold with it. Even now in 5th edition, there's still a huge amount of magic item glut inside of the adventures. Like, it's expected, something like a character is expected basically to have one magic item for every level that they have. So a 20th level character would probably have anywhere from like 15 to 24 magic items for every character in your party. But like Descendant to Avernus has over 100 magic items in it. So like 120 some odd magic items. So if you're playing with a party of 4 and you're going from level 5 to 15, that's only about 10 levels worth. You only need about 40 magic items. It's got 3 times the amount of magic items that you need, and obviously that's a lot of that's going to come from maybe not doing all of the content, or players that aren't particularly motivated in looting stuff to acquire these items. They're just constantly being peppered throughout the game, but there's like less and less actual currency that you can acquire, and because there's no real use for it anymore. So it's a really interesting change in just the just the meta narrative of like the meta mechanics of acquiring power inside of like D&D in particular. I think that's where I end the sentence on that. It's interesting. But that was that was a quick little rant, I guess, motivated by what was I talking about? Oh yeah, when I was a kid and I started DMing and I would stare at maps and it made me think about all of this stuff. That's where that came from. So ramble on, sing our song. I am, where am I at? 50%? 50%? Yeah, 54%. That's doing pretty well today. This is, oh shit, I gotta set a timer. It's 7:40. I need to keep track of my clock. I got about 80 minutes I can invest tonight. So it's about 7:40 here in Seattle. I'll be dropping out at 9. I got some book stuff to do that I'm going to do offline because slopping text around on a page isn't good content. I'm learning that from the Martial Powers project. When I do DM tips and like running the game sort of text writing on Mondays, I find that those fare much less. Fare worse, I think is the English I'm trying to use there. They don't fare as well as the books like me converting a subclass or like kitting out a particular type of character or building magic items. Like all the player facing content seems to be what gets the best numbers for that project as opposed to the DM stuff. So although I will say building out the power kits for NPCs and monsters, that did go pretty well. So I really love that though. I love how those mechanics are ubiquitous, that they work the same on both sides of the DM screen. That's something that's really missing now in 5th edition, that like creatures play by completely different rules than the characters do. In 3rd edition, creatures had literally would acquire character levels as NPCs as part of their expressing their power. So when a DM is building like an NPC boss, they'd be literally building a character that the team would fight, and that is something that has fallen. I think that fell on the wayside in 4th edition when they created these MMO sort of roles that creatures played, like strikers and artillery support, solo bosses. This is a very meta language that they adopted for the game, and that it kind of slid back a couple steps. Like 1st and 2nd edition didn't really bother with levels because there was so little level to bother with. Like a fighter would get a +1 on their attacks and like an extra D8 hit points. Don't roll a 1, or hope that you don't roll a 1. Like that's your fighter in Beckme in 1st edition. Like you didn't gain squat, and so there wasn't really much to pilfer from characters to integrate into monsters. Like if you have a monster that can cast spells, they're basically already a wizard, just because the fact that they can cast a wizard spell at all basically made them a wizard. And because there wasn't really anything else that a wizard had going on in first edition. 2nd edition started integrating things like specialists and started rewarding specialization and character distinction, and then the skills and powers system came in, which allow you to have further modular, like create all these little modular systems on how to optimize your character. By second edition, they pretty much locked down Mostly because of the Dragonlance adventures, keeping the same character, like wanting, like actively attempting to keep the same character from level 1 to whenever. And it wasn't until 3rd edition that they locked down that whenever would cap at basically at 20th level. But then they recanted and eventually came out with the epic level handbook, kind of as an homage to the Immortals, the Immortal rules set from, what was it, I want to say, was it 89, 91, the Immortals box set. The epic level handbook from 3rd edition was certainly a nod to that tier of power. So it was interesting. I enjoyed the epic level handbook in 3rd edition, but our table mostly just used extending past 20th level just as a static mean to continue acquiring additional prestige classes, which is pretty much, I mean, it was 3rd edition. It's pretty much all you could do. So either acquire prestige classes or you just take your base class to the absurd level. But it was all just, epic level handbook just became ridiculous. There's no, I don't see a need for it in 5th edition. 5th edition characters are so powerful. It's almost laughable to consider epic levels for 5th edition characters because they are so powerful in comparison to any other edition. Like, your characters are already basically gods by the time you get to 20th level anyway. Just giving them the label isn't that big of an issue. You don't really have to add that much more to them. But people have attempted to create. I mean, I've been hired to work on epic level work in 3rd edition, and just having DM'd and played 3rd level campaigns that reached up into 32nd level over the course of a decade. It was more headache than it was worth. You know, once you, I keep end up cycling back to this point. Your own character's personal power has plausibility limits. You know, by the time your character is so powerful that they can literally jump to the moon, it's that character is kind of pointless to continue playing. But accumulating property and followers and being able to create a safe space for them to be able to thrive inside of is a much more difficult game loop. It requires more mechanics, it requires more commitment, it requires a lot more investment of time and logistics at the table on both sides of the DM screen. And all those followers are severe liabilities inside of a campaign. The last when one of the Eberron campaigns that I was running, by the time the characters got to around level 16, they had not only developed fleshed out a small trading post into a decent city, but they'd also pissed off a lot of very powerful demons, and this was a really great learning lesson for me as a DM, because the characters, 5th edition, this is like maybe 8 years ago, probably 6 years ago. What would that have been? 20? Yeah, about 6 years ago. I was still figuring out. I mean, this was the 3rd campaign that I had ran in 5th edition to 20th level. So the first campaign we ran was straight out of the book, no multi-classing, no feats, as written. There you go. The second campaign that we ran used spell points and allowed for, and we built Gestalt, where you build 2 classes at the same time, and if there's any overlap, you take the better of the 2 options. So you're basically playing like 1.75 classes worth inside of one character, and that was ultra powerful. And then the 3rd campaign, we dropped Gestalt We kept spell points. What was the other? Multi-classing was okay. Feats were okay. Spell points were set. Oh yeah, otherwise it was a pretty standard campaign. So the first campaign ran pretty smoothly. The second campaign was ridiculously powerful. And then there was the oh no, it was the second. Yeah, it was the Gestalt campaign. That was the second campaign. That's where this was happening. Thank you. So the recanting there real quick. This is the second campaign where characters are Gestalt. They were so powerful that as a DM, the only way I could really threaten them was to threaten their community and their NPCs, which they loved. They loved their city. They loved their citizens, and they pissed off a number of major demons. So their community was constantly under attack from extra-dimensional forces, and God, it pissed them off, because if they tried to go do something wherever they were, they may or may not kill something, they may achieve their goal, but while they're doing that, they're getting punched in 2 other places. And it was impossible for them to keep up. I mean, they had pissed off like 3 demons. So they were constantly having to bounce between those foes. So as a DM, I actually learned a lot there. One, make sure you're comfortable with the level of power that the characters accumulate. And if you're not, make sure you have a conversation with them about what's going wrong, what's missing out, and what you think your solutions are. If a game isn't working, but people like the story in the game, there's no reason to not step back and have a conversation with what do we need to do to make sure that we can continue the story, and that I as a DM can still create plausible threats and still have a day job, like not have to burn 40 hours a week on coming up with stuff that you guys will chew through in 5 or 6 rounds. So you have to have that kind of a conversation. You also need to make sure you're minimizing the threats that are on the table at the same time. I had introduced so many plot lines, and they only had so much bandwidth for them to be able to resolve any issue. They can only really resolve one problem at a time. So if you're slamming out 4 or 5 different paths, they actually became overloaded with like decision paralysis. Like, what do we actually need to do next? So they were overwhelmed with options. The world was being too responsive and reactive to them. And they were being threatened on too many fronts at the same time. So that really taught me as a DM to feather different things into each other so they could all braid in and become the same problem at some point. So they could have many paths into a problem, but when they go into that funnel, they need to be able to hem down and get rid of a number of the straggling issues that hadn't been resolved, so that when they get through this, they can see, by us defeating this demon lord, this city is now secured. We have this trade line that's now okay, and we've gained allies from this cult of whatever. And it escalates the threat from the 2 remaining demons. So you're eliminating, as you go up in tiers, like you have to keep aware of how much your team can actually achieve, and make sure that you're only just barely outpacing their ability to keep the threats just a little bit, like 10% more than they can handle, so that they're constantly pushing something, making a difference, but seeing immediately that there's still things that need to be done that require their attention, but aren't going to completely bite them in the ass if they can't get to it immediately. So timing becomes an issue. I think if I were to start a new segment, it would probably be something like one of the lessons that I learned from running these 1 to 20 campaigns is how to escalate and then resolve plot lines and threats. Like when you're starting at first level, the way that I run games from level 1 to 20, the first 3 levels I don't attack them with anything. It's basically all It's all social encounters and like investigation and ability checks, so that and inside of a finite space that the team can thoroughly explore. And normally there's some sort of a threat, like a higher power that's obviously like a CR5 or something like that, something that's so significantly outscaling the characters that's basically establishing law of the land that the characters basically have to respect until they gain enough power to overthrow that that chaperone, I guess, for lack of a better word. So at first, like the first 4 levels, it's more like establishing a tone for the campaign, getting personalities figured out for who the players are. One method that I use is you can only add, like, you can start with your character's background, but you can only add 1 sentence to their backstory, and every time you gain a level, you can add another sentence to what their backstory is, and you're welcome to incorporate anything that you've found out about the campaign world or want to explore that can help you, so that your character is growing with the narrative of the story that's being built, and so that players have a chance to thread their characters' personalities and history into each other, so that they can become a more cohesive team. So those first few levels are low risk of death, but you only spend, like, if you're going by the DMG, you like spend 1 session at first level, 2 sessions at second level, 2 sessions at third level, and then basically 3 sessions, or like 10 to 12 hours at 4th, 5th, 6th, etc., up through 19th, and then once you hit 20th level, you basically that's basically it. But the DM can occasionally reward epic boons as a story, like as a story reward of some sort. You aren't actually gaining levels at that point once you hit 20th. So as you gain levels, you can deepen your character's backstory so that it's staying in sync with the campaign world that everyone's been building together. So the first 4-ish levels, you're not actually attacking them. It's all exploration, getting to know people, and if I'm doing my job as a DM right, by the time they hit 4th or 5th level, there is somebody they want to fucking kill. Like, I cannot wait until like the peace knots come off our weapons. We can start just getting even with people, because if you've been building this exploration and these social encounters, most likely there's going to be NPCs that are pissing the players off. But until they get strong enough to be able to actually do physical combat, to actually start slaying things and dealing with the consequences that go along with that, there's a lot of opportunity for the DM to just get underneath their skin and get them to a point where I'm really looking forward to killing this guy. I think one of the most successful instances of this was in a campaign where it was everything was resolved through wizards duels. So you would have, and like everyone had cantrips, so people would be fighting with cantrips and stuff. It was all basically skill checks and thinking of clever ways to use their spells to be able to do non-lethal, non-hit point stuff to each other, as like one like in the city, they aren't leaving the city until they're a high enough level to survive leaving. But in the city, there is no, murder's a thing, and there's no excuses. So the players were very careful about not killing, and me as a DM, none of the NPCs were trying to break those rules. The NPCs were maintaining that rule, so the players realized that, as a DM, he's maintaining this ludo narrative, that this social agreement that we had created, that there would be no combat until, say, 5th level. So all the NPCs were complying with this as well. So the players had plenty of chance to really just get angry at this one team that beat them repeatedly in these duels, or like there was a rogue that was always casing the same joints as the player thief was, and would have to compete against that rival thieves guild, and got screwed out of their target treasure a number of times. And at that point, they're like, I really want to take this I really want to take down this thieves guild. Like, I'm taking it down as soon as I can. And once they get to 5th level, they started targeting. Like they went on an assassination mission against the rival wizards gang, and they ended up taking over the thieves guild that had pissed them off, because they realized there's actually a lot of really good thieves in that guild. If we can just take it over instead, that'll give us a leg up. So there's a I mean, it can be, I guess it can be done to different degrees of success. I think I just had some particularly good luck, as well as players that were really willing to go along with that narrative. So we didn't actually start dungeon delving until 7th level, and so that was just a very, very different. It was a very different style of campaign, and I ended up really enjoying it, and I maintained that for all my other campaigns since then. So almost all of my games are very low combat until 2nd tier, 5th level plus, when your characters are strong enough to be able to get into a number of fights. I'm also the kind of DM that will deal damage to you every round, no matter what. It's just a matter of how little damage are you going to take, or are you really going to get your ass handed to you. So I'm also one of those like players roll all the dice type of DMs. And so you don't have an armor class, you have a defense roll. And unless you roll a natural 20 on your defense roll, you're going to take at least some damage no matter what. So combat is really dangerous in general. Like you're not going to get out. You're going to have to heal. And after any fight that you have, you will have to heal one way or another. And so that's calculus that the characters have to take into account. Is we know we're going to get hurt by these things. Are we in a place right now where we're good with handling that? Or what else do we have on our agenda today that we need to resolve? Or are we in a bad position? We need to back out of this fight. But with your game starting off with the mindset of combat is not necessary for us to run a game, building that in for the first 4 levels, characters can always back into that. Like back away from a fight by defaulting back to non-combat scenarios. Or if they see a threat that they're really concerned that they can't take down, the frame of the campaign is built around, we're going to not fight. Like combat is our last option, and isn't even an option for a while. So that kind of what's the word I'm looking? Culture is the word I was looking for. That sort of that table culture gets built into your campaign, and it really helps change the priorities of how characters can resolve conflicts, because they know they're going to get wounded. If they roll initiative, chances are they're going to get damaged, and they can't necessarily tell the significance of the threat they're dealing with. So there's a lot of caution that goes into it, which is a really different approach to games than how 5e is being presented. It's a very old school approach. Hey, Knack, it's good to see you, my dude. Similar to how we're doing it in what's your system called again? Hold on. Yeah, TA. Yeah, that's right. Remind us what the name of TA is. It's the role-playing game that you've been working on for the past 6 months, right? Damage side plus the amount over the defense. That's a good way of going about it. Yeah, there's depending on how you build your game, there's no limit to how you can ferret that out, right? Tempered Arcana, thank you. The way that we would do it, the way that I typically do it in a 5e format is the default damage, like they have a troll hits you for 7, and then parentheses is like 2d6 plus 1 or whatever. Damage, it would be the default damage would be, if you're successful with your defense roll, you'd only take the default damage. If you fail your defense roll, then you take max damage. And then if you rolled a natural 20, it would be no damage, and if you rolled a 1, it'd be double damage. So there was the default damage, max damage, and then double max damage or no damage. So at any time, and defense rules are great because the DM doesn't have to do anything. All you gotta do is just set the DC, and in that kind of a game system, the DM can have that meta conversation about this is the defense role that you need. And like the higher your level your characters get, or the more familiar they are fighting particular types of foes, the more the DM can tell them this is the target number that you're going to be looking for. But like initially, when they first start fighting, I don't tell them anything. It's like, give me a defense roll, and they'll like roll an 18. It's like, you take X damage, that hurt a lot, and they don't know if they actually succeeded the roll, and the thing just doesn't do a lot of damage, or if they fail, if they succeeded the roll and the thing does a shitload of damage, and they just got lucky, or if they actually failed the roll and this thing doesn't hit hard. Until they actually have a number of encounters and levels getting familiar with the enemies that are in your game, they can't really tell. So everything, even though they may have some defensive abilities and the ability to heal themselves, they have to keep encountering stuff to really get a bead on how much of a threat is it that we're really looking at. So having the same sort of enemies be a recurring theme inside of your game, inside of the same tier, is actually really valuable because they get to learn that enemy. That's another game culture sort of thing. But if you're constantly throwing like you want to throw new monsters at the team so they don't get bored, but at the same time those new monsters can be the same monsters they're familiar with just modifications. Matt Colville is really big on that, of having like very generic, like very basic type of creatures, but then having a lot of different iterations of those creatures with different abilities, so that they always have like this different role and this different feeling to them. But there's still that ongoing familiarity with what they are. So when you have players roll these dice and they're trying to metagame to figure out where exactly are they standing in the pecking order right now, that's a really good tactic to follow. That's like good DM advice, I guess. Next opinion, let's see. Jesus Christ, 2.5 years. Well, cheers to you, boss. I've worked on a lot of projects that take a long time myself, and I can big time respect how heavy of a lift those things are. So cheers to you, boss. I think I've just been aware of it for 6 months is probably where that is. So forgive me for filtering your existence through my experiences. I missed a spec here. So your opinion doing hidden DCs like that kind of takes away from the narrative. Like, what did I just do? I rolled an 18. Did I block some damage, or did I get hit by a werewolf's claws? Yeah, I think a lot of that comes down to how well are you at narrating in general. So, yeah, you can go about it by having like open rolls or open DC, like sharing the DCs on stuff. That's a form of communication. The horror brand of game, I think, is more about not providing that information. Like, it's the lack of information that adds to the genre. So being aware of what genre you're actually operating inside of goes a long way towards what kind of dice mechanic narrative, like what kind of dice resolution are you using inside your game at all, also becomes pretty significant. Like D&D is a very war game tactical sort of game. So it's difficult to shoehorn it into like a murder mystery sort of game, right? Because it just kind of boils down to a couple of ability checks and you figure out what's going on, unless you build complicated subsystems that revolve around investigation. But the more time you invest into that different challenge, the more you're pulling away from, in this instance, combat simulation. Like, the more you make your game about murder investigation, the less your game becomes about combat. So at what point are you shoehorning a completely different genre of game into the mechanics that your table has chosen, which of course is the big complaint about having a monopolistic company or monopolistic game system like D&D being a combat simulator that people are constantly wanting to pull like Blade of the Dark ideas and stuff into. And I'm guilty of this myself. I am a designer that aspires to build heist mechanics, and I'm really big on squads and armies and building domains and stuff. And these are decidedly not 5e concepts. It's just not built for that stuff. You're having to build those tools, and I think like good design allows you to expand the narrative while using the same mechanics that are native to the game, as opposed to bad design, which is introducing a ton of different types of mechanics to make the narrative that you're looking for work, which is why I'm so picky on limiting what kind of resolution mechanics I introduce into a system. And like in particular my work, how much I want to make sure it's transparent on both sides of the screen so that it becomes an integrated piece of what, like in this instance, 5e just does. But at some point you got to really ask yourself, if I'm doing all this mechanical work, am I really just trying to build a different game altogether, or am I still staying true to the game that I'm creating new rule systems for? So that's something that I constantly struggle with. So far, I think and honestly, slow cooking is the solution to it. Like anyone that rushes out a thick book of new mechanics that are supposed to work with an existing system already, I question how much testing actually goes into it to see how well these things actually interact with the game environment as intended. So, hey, more input. No offense taken at all. Thanks. Very tasty observation. Thank you. So it's very difficult to escape the monolith that is D&D, and especially 5e. Yeah, your Timber kind of started and strayed as a class-based 5e clone for around the first year and a half. Because how far it went. I think that's just you becoming more clear with where your heart actually wants to go with your system. I will never disparage somebody for taking a ridiculous amount of time to produce something. The more time you actually spend on it, especially the more time you actually play it and test it and know that it works, the more it's going to end up just being a solid product, regardless of what system it's supposed to interact with or if it's its own. So keep at it, man. I'm liking what you're seeing. Or I'm liking what I'm seeing that you're doing is the English that I'm trying to use there. So cheers to that, boss. I need water. I'm gonna drop from the screen real quick and grab myself a jug of juice and keep at this stuff. There we go. Oh man. I tell you what. Nothing tastes better than just plain water when you're thirsty. But the 400th time instead. You'll get there, my dude. You'll get there. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Water is incredible, and the world is covered with it. Oh man, what a paradise we were born into! It's amazing. We were literally we were literally built to live here. It sounds like such a trite statement, but just the ramifications, just the depth of that truth. Like, if you want to talk about if you want to talk about metagaming, be human. Like, this world is so perfectly built for us. we literally can just survive just by showing up. You know, it's pretty great. I watched a survival how-to video about a guy. I think he was in Wisconsin, and it was just it was a winter. It was like 20 degrees below. It was a winter field, and he had a backpack, and he's like, and the video was how to survive in the northern plains without any survival gear. And basically what he did was he found a shitload of reeds. It was like a snowdrift that was covering these like 3-foot tall reeds that were all stamped down. And he's like, this is so easy. Check this out. He basically took his hands and he dug a hole through these reeds that was like 8 feet deep into it. And he says, and he made it just large enough for him to shimmy his body into. He's like, you want to have these reeds be so close to your body that it feels like a sleeping bag. And so he wriggled his way in feet first, and he just backed his backpack in front of him as a door stopper. And he's like, I can sleep like this no problem all night. All I had to do was find a snowdrift that had large enough plants underneath it that I could just dig a cubby hole. The water, the snow itself, and the weight of the plants would hold his body heat for the night. He didn't need any equipment. It's like, I don't know shit about surviving in the wilderness. I am blind. I am an urban creature. I recognize how much of a liability I am for when the world goes to the apocalypse, but I've been watching a lot of, just out of idle curiosity, a lot of these survival type how-to videos. And it's just amazing that if you just know how the world works, how much the world is just there to support you. It's ridiculous. It is really ridiculous. If you just understand your environment on this planet, it's almost like, hey, we know the odds are stacked against you, so we're going to make it as easy for you as possible to survive, because something horrible is going to end up happening to you just out of bad luck. So we don't want you claiming that the game is rigged. So we're going to make it super easy for you to actually survive if you know what you're doing. And I love that. I recognize I don't have that level of mastery, but I am respecting more and more that having that level of mastery, really just that knowledge, is all you really need to be able to survive in this world pretty much anywhere. And that's just, I love that about this world. I love that about life. Husky dogs actually insulate themselves in the wild by coming. There you go. Yeah, there was a great video about a guy who had 2 dogs. One of them was a husky and the other one was a chihuahua. And the chihuahua was hiding in the covers of the bed to stay warm. And then he went to the dog door on his deck, and he looked through there, and it was like 2 feet of snow, and his dog's like, you see his dog's nose sticking out from the snow. He's like, he can come through this door anytime he wants. He's just enjoying being in an igloo right now, and I love that. I love that. It never stops. It never ceases to impress me. Like humans, like these animals just know how to do this stuff, but they don't have a really large kit of knowledge that they need. They have their biome that they live inside of, and they're masters of their own biome. Humans don't have that instinctive knowledge. They have that, cultural transfer of information from elders to youth. But that's actually an interesting comment about how fast society is moving right now. That there, other than like how to treat people, there's less and less information that in a first world country, there's less and less information that the older generations can actually impart to the younger generations on how to actually survive. Like, who listening to this stream that's under 30 years old can take legitimate advice from a 75-year-old about being able to own a home? Get the fuck out of here. It just doesn't. It's like completely irrelevant. Like, our culture is moving so fast that generational knowledge is becoming almost worthless. Like the only real skill that seems to be gaining in power is is flexibility in concept. Being able to connect dots between two systems to be able to create more synergy between the two of them that are already established and maintained by automated processes that don't actually have a lot of physical human interaction with to maintain, which is a significant threat, which is, I think, also why America hasn't been doing shit for their infrastructure. So I honestly don't think we have enough people that know how to build bridges to be able to build good bridges anymore. It's like, I just don't think we have a culture that encourages that kind of growth and knowledge anymore. I think it's going to bite us in the ass in the next 20 years, honestly. Kind of concerned about it. Also, I'll be 70, so something's probably going to kill me by then, so kind of not my problem, but I feel bad for the kids. I don't have any myself, so I mean, it's completely hypothetical for me. But then I'll probably need to have like a robot waifu taking care of me by the time I'm 75. I'll just make sure I get one that my girl thinks is pretty too, so that I'm not K and joy for the rest of my existence. I don't know, man. I have no idea where this world is going. I don't even know where this conversation is going. I think I'm gonna back out of it before it gets too creepy. Generational knowledge for things that aren't physical skills is mostly entirely outdated. Yeah. Like my dad literally built a house that I grew up in, and I have difficulty with IKEA furniture. You know, it's like older, and that sounds very tropey for me to bring that kind of stuff up because it is tropey, but it's not from an okay boomer perspective. It's really just it's irrelevant, which isn't a fresh take either. That's a very Gen Alpha. I don't know. I don't even know what generation we're in anymore. I'm not making any fresh takes here. I think I'm just spouting other people's talking points, which makes me concerned. That I'm operating outside my own wheelhouse because the opinions I'm sharing is pretty much mimicking other conversations that I've held that I've agreed with. I find it's very easy to bark talking points that I agree with that I didn't come up with myself than to go through the deep thought process of creating those opinions myself, which is also somebody else's statement that I've observed in a YouTube video. It's I think D&D is one of the last places that as an individual I myself can go to create original ideas, which I think is why I love role-playing games so much. It is like the last frontier that someone unskilled like myself that has a lot of imagination and knows how to put two and two together can actually build something unique and new. Maybe if I was a coder or something like that, I don't know. I'm a pretty low skill set kind of guy. But I'm creative, and I'm really good at being able to see connections between things and integrate systems together. So it's certainly allowed me to excel in analytics in the marketing world, to be able to see how different systems operate together and how to build efficiencies out of that for profit margins. I guess it only kind of makes sense that my hobby would be to integrate systems in my role-playing game of preference to be able to make it do and have higher yields of output. I guess it's just kind of me doing my job in a different field, more or less. But it makes me feel smart figuring that sort of stuff out. So I guess that's I don't have that's where my original thoughts lie. And they aren't really original thoughts; they're just new ways of looking at stuff. So I think I'm kind of cheating a little bit, but it adds value to conversations. Being able to see how things work together and how two seemingly different things are actually connected together is an incredibly valuable skill. I will say that as an original thought, that in my life I have had more success in the professional environment and in my personal circles, the more I'm able to see how the different people in my life actually, like, if I can point out how people agree with each other more than they are disagreeing with each other, huge victory for everybody involved. The more I can see how data sets are reflecting similar truths about an industry, or how things can tie together to improve efficiency or synergy, obviously massive value to the businesses that are impacted by that sort of thing. Being able to correlate and basically reframe data so that it becomes more useful and has greater application than its original use is, for somebody that's unskilled, being able to develop that kind of perception might, I don't know if it's a gift or if it's actually something that can be accumulated. I certainly believe that whatever it is that gave me the ability to think that way, it's been something that I've doubled down over and over and over again every decade. Like, lean into that more and more, taking what you know and figuring out what you know, especially if it's like a truth of some sort, and how you can apply it to more and more things ends up being huge victories for anyone that you end up interacting with. That's an original thought I can share. Sometimes people just say wise stuff that you incorporate into your worldview. Sadly, many people take a lot of really trashy talking points to the heart, but there's a good side to that sort of thing. So I don't really think it's cheating to say things that you heard from someone else. That sort of thing is just part of your worldview, even if you picked it up from someone else. Fair point. Very, very fair point, my friend. I mean, you have to form your view from, you have to start somewhere, right? So you're going, I mean, even as a kid in a family, you're being fed norms and values that you then rip off of and build into your own expression of what those values are, or you decide to throw them away and acquire new values that you then start integrating into your routines. So yeah, that is an excellent way to reframe that perspective, man. Well done. Very well done. Next song. Bew, bew. Only I could actually run voice sessions of the game I made when I get to that part. That is a challenge, my friend. I gotta say though, man, when you were playing with, I mean, you weren't the DM, so it was like you didn't have your mic on all the time, but I personally never had a problem with you. I am not trying to de-emphasize your concerns, because you certainly know where you're at better than anyone else can. But I honestly never would have guessed it at all, that there was any issue at all. I've actually been discovering that a lot of issues that I have around my vision, a lot of that is, I'm not trying to teach you anything. I'm just kind of running my mouth right now about things that I'm discovering about myself. So don't think I'm trying to relate this to anything. I'm just sharing an experience here that the type of parents that I had, bless them for their effort, because I was a difficult child. to parent because of the visual limits that I have. But a lot of the frustration that they as young parents had with me, I know that I ended up adopting as like a stance that I would take as to how I should approach my own personal limitations. And it's only been this past year that I've been able to recognize that like a lot of the opinions I have about myself and what I'm capable of doing is really just a hangover from how frustrated my parents were with dealing with my bullshit, and how much I can sense now, like in my genes, I can sense now how badly they just wanted to fucking give up. It's like, God, this is just, when is this little shit out of my life that I can just go back and not have to worry about it. And I only this past year or so been able to recognize how much of that disdain, I guess, for lack of a better word, I've actually had trapped inside of my own psyche that I applied to myself. And I am very, very thankful that I had the will to try to figure out why is it, like, what about it? One of the great things about being somebody that's naturally curious and wants to do better for themselves is constantly questioning, why is shit not going the way that I expected, and actually approaching it not from a bemoaning woe is me, but like, what can I actually do to fix something? Like problem solving, you know? I don't think everyone is just naturally built to try to look at a thing and go, this can be better. I know it can be. If it couldn't be better, I wouldn't be asking, how could this possibly be better? So there must be a solution someplace. Now it's just a matter of how much effort am I willing to apply to it to find out what that answer actually is, and what kind of changes and sacrifices am I going to have to make once I realize what that solution is. Then it becomes an issue of, am I actually willing to do the work that I identify that needs to be done? But I think that honestly is beyond the capacity of a lot of people. Just to endure the suffering long enough to recognize patterns that aren't working. Like, I think the greatest thing about having a disability is not being able to get out of it. Like, you have to deal with this. This is a caveat to existing, and it is your job to endure this thing, whatever it is that you're suffering from, until you check out of the game. And I think a lot of the source of my pride and empathy in my relationships and people in my life has come from just that own personal introspection and recognizing how difficult that is for most people just to apply that constant. Like, I have no choice. Sometimes I just have to figure things out. I have to figure things out. Otherwise, I'm not going to know where I'm at. I'm not going to know where I'm going to need to be. I can't get the information that I want unless I'm specifically trying to find a solution to how to get that information. So I have to constantly adapt and evolve around the environment that I'm in, depending on what information I need, that the world just assumes I have access to, but I don't. So I have to be looking for better solutions all the time. And I think most people don't have that level of stress that's just constantly pushing them to, the world is supposed to be better. It's your job to figure out how, like, I'm always behind. I'm constantly behind just because I have such limited information coming into my eyes. So I know for a fact that I have less cards in my hand than anyone else that I'm playing with. So I have to figure out how to get advantage. And I guess what makes me a good person is that I'm trying to gain those advantages without taking it away from other people, which leads me to trying to find systems and means to be able to build other people around me as well. So, boy, I'm really rambling. So you've been experiencing some pretty severe voice... Oh, really? The past year, I went from having a bit of a stutter to barely being able to speak full sentences without my voice breaking in my throat. Fair. Probably see a doctor. Also can't afford a non-essential. Do you snore a lot? Do you, I don't. Forgive me for diving into this with you. I don't want to be embarrassed. We can take this offline. And I can, we can talk about it some other time. But my intuition is telling me to ask if you have a snoring issue, because I have a lot of throat issues. Not that I can compare myself to, and I don't know the breadth of your circumstances, but I fell off a cliff when I was a kid, and I ended up damaging some of the vertebrae, basically from my clavicles to my jawline here. They're all ground together, and they're really broken, and so I have a lot of choking issues that I have to deal with a lot of times. It's not the same thing that you're dealing with, but I also had a snoring issue, and I found there's this weird thing about pressing my tongue up into the top of my throat, and it pulls all the muscles in my neck, and I've just been doing this for the past couple months, but it's changing the jawline, so like the slump underneath my throat, it's less of like a droop like this, and it's more tight up underneath my jaw now, but all the muscles that frame around my spine, like all that supportive material, I can actively feel it pulling up into my skull when I arc my tongue up and press it up against the roof of the palate of my mouth. It's pulling all that muscle up, and it's causing my airway to clear up a lot more. So I'm choking less, I'm snoring less, and again my jawline is strengthening. But I have no idea if that means anything for you at all. But it just popped in my brain as something to bring up. Not the tip of the tongue, but the back of the tongue, making it rise up and then trying to press up against the top of your mouth. It pulls all the muscles in your throat. I don't know if after like a couple weeks of doing that, if there could possibly be any change, but it's maybe something to try while you try to sort out getting in touch with a specialist. Even if it just lessens things, it might be worth it. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. You can tell me to fuck off. I totally deserve it. But it came up, so I felt like I felt like I'd be a jackass if I didn't at least mention it. So there I am mentioning it. Also, apparently sleep. No, we're kidding. Sleep talk. That's interesting. But yeah, I readily recognize, like, boy oh boy, that'll be an interesting challenge to resolve, because obviously the most logical person to play test the game that you're designing would be you, but we all have our own set of challenges. So I hope that by the time the game system gets to a point where it's ready to go, that a path will open up that's going to allow you to be able to do that. I also hope that doesn't become a stalling point that prevents you from being able to move as quickly through development of your game that you could, because it is a problem. Because I know that I sabotage myself a lot when I don't feel confident about taking the next step. I end up hiding inside of like sitting here mincing on pixels like this because I don't want to deal with this over here. So I'll just sit here and hide in this little curve over here and like make that perfect, make this perfect because I'm afraid to deal with something that's over there. I'm not trying to psychoanalyze you. I'm just saying I can relate to how obnoxious that shit can be. So hopefully that's coming across as sincere. Hey Tyler, it's good to see you, my dude. Ooh, water time. so good. God, I'm looking forward to Saturday. I am so looking forward to working on layout. I love layouts. They terrify me, but once I get past the terror, it's all joy. Interesting observation about how much fear and excitement are the same emotion. Just fear is uncertainty about what's happening or is going to happen, while excitement is anticipation and joy about what you about what will happen or what is happening. It's the same energy. It's just a matter of, are you welcoming what's going to happen or not? That's basically the difference between excitement and fear. So I was afraid of the layouts when I first got them back from Adam. That was like maybe 3 weeks ago, and so luckily I still had ship tokens to create, so I didn't have to deal with the layouts right away. But it was intimidating initially, and now that I've been able to break it down into its little components, it just feels like another book at this point. It's just got to get built, and it's going to be built the way it's going to get built. But until I can frame it as something that I'm familiar with, it was really intimidating. I've never done layouts for a book that's over 100 pages before, so it was daunting to even look at it. Like, how am I supposed to suss this shit out? But in the last Saturday's stream, when we started breaking down the hierarchy of the font sizes, that really helped me step over the scope of the project and be able to break it down into these smaller little components. And God, that was great. I honestly hadn't broken down. What am I trying to say? It traditionally, he says traditionally, until now, whenever I've done a book, I'll write the book and then I'll do that scaffolding process that we did on Saturday, and that scaffolding process shows me where there's holes in like the logical, like I was talking earlier. I don't remember which stream. I don't remember what Discord I was on, but I was talking about the order in which you place information about classes or whatever game system it is that you're building. But you have to put things in things have to be one after the other, because time is a thing and you can only read one thing at a time. So you have to present information in a specific order, and what that specific order is obviously up to you. But once you really get into developing whatever it is that you're working on, in this case like game mechanics, once you get the actual rules and mechanics down, you can start looking at what order is that information presented in, and once you have a really logical structure about how the information progresses from here's a new idea, and then here's all the shit that has anything to do with that idea, and then here's our conclusion at the end of it. There's a logical progression from here's an idea all the way through, now you know everything about this, go play with it. There's a logical progression to move through that data. And if you have things that are out of order, you might have to reference something that hasn't been written yet. I don't know why you're referencing this information. 15 pages later, I know what you're talking about now. If you do your product good, you'll be able to present new concepts before you need to reference them. That's good structuring. And the way that I've always done books before, which I'm going to do differently in the future, is I didn't do font structuring until after a manuscript was done. This current work included. But I'm finding now that what I want to do in the future is build out that structure while I'm writing the book, because I want to like the fonts. I'm finding that like if I don't structure it properly, one like say action economy in action economy for a pilot versus the action economy of a squadron commander. It's the same action economy, but depending on how I layer the information inside of the book, all the action economy for a squadron commander may end up being further shifted down to a smaller font size, because action economy may end up being a subsection further into the hierarchy than what action economy may have been for the pilot. So I may find myself talking about pilot action economy with subheadings with let's say a 14-point font, but the layers of information has the squadron commander using that same action economy, but the structure forces it to be at, say, a 10-point font instead. Like they should both be 14-point font, or should both be 12-point font. So the way the book should be structured, it should be that if a section is talking about a particular idea, any other similar idea should have the same font structure. So there's that connection that these ideas are the same, and the fonts that we're using, the size of the font sections, the underlining, the indentation, that should all be the same because it's the same idea. You're just applying it to a new area. And if I can't do that, that probably means I've made something too complicated. Or I made something further along that was too trite, that needs deeper complexity, and I don't understand yet how that is. And building out that structured, that compilation of how large of a font does each of these sections need to be, and the content that's inside of it, how far into the hierarchy does it get pushed. That gave me a lot of information about how I already liked how the book was structured, but when I went through that full process, I saw a number of instances where there's a gap here. I am missing information that I didn't realize I was inferring because of how much data was in the book. But when I actually parsed it all out, I realized, oh, there's like information about squadrons that's missing that was there for ships. I need to rectify that shit. So that's a huge tangent. I forgot what my base point honestly was, but I was intimidated by the project. Once I got past being intimidated by it, I was able to go into that depth and start pulling the book apart. And I think in future projects, I want to start doing that hierarchy stuff really early on to help me recognize earlier in the process where data may be missing, or where I may be adding too much or not having enough complexity in a subject. If that same kind of idea is being expressed in different layers in a different section. I don't know if this is making sense or not. I guess you guys will have to tune in on Saturday to see what I'm talking about. But that was a really exciting discovery. And I'm finding Stuart Braz, who's the editor for this Eberron project, he is excellent at structuring like that. He's taking all the adventure content that we built for this book, and he's been doing such a great job when he's going through his editing process of just breaking it down into these subsections. It's just, God, he really is teaching. It's just, he wasn't intending to, but he's been teaching me a lot about visual structuring of data inside of a document. And that's just, man, I am thankful that I've developed enough as a creator to be able to even notice that thing that's happening. You know, like that's a gap in my, like to be able to observe that there's a gap there in my ability, and to see how other people around me that I already have built into my world are able to utilize, like are better at that than I am. It's just, fucking hey man, collaborating with other people, like having an editor is always good, but collaborating with people in general, it adds more cooks to the kitchen. It slows things down and potentially eats away at the amount of profit that you have. But especially if it's a big project, collaboration is just, it's worth the added steps, and it's worth the loss of revenue. It's worth the added complexity and having to bend ukulele. Ukulele Bard is convinced me that I needed to look at dodge as an action that didn't have a place in the Spelljammer mechanics, and it wasn't until we started playtesting it that I recognized that he was absolutely right. But if he wasn't on the team, I don't know if I would have known there was a problem. It really required a perspective from a completely different direction to be able to see that flaw existed in the game. Like as a super specific example. What were we talking about? I think we were talking about I was excited about doing page layouts. What's going on over here? Hey, right on, dude. Saturday, I'm going to spend a couple hours doing page layouts for the Spelljammer book. The edits are done. It's solid. It's all I need to do is layouts and finish the artwork, and I get to publish it. So we'll see how many art assets I actually need in the book, which is what a lot of the layouts is all about, and like how compact. Like the more spread out I make the information on the pages of the book, the more likely it is that I need to have some sort of illustrations to make the page not feel too empty, which means I'm going to have to spend extra time illustrating. So all my books tend to be really dense, like have a lot of text on the page, because I know that if I have too much white space on that page, I am going to be compelled to put artwork in it. And every piece of art I add is going to be anywhere from 1 to 40 more hours of work that I have to do, depending on how far down the rabbit hole I go with the project. And then I have to worry about equity and sprawl. If I end up overdeveloping one picture, it's going to start feeling unbalanced, which is going to push me into doing more for the other pieces, which ends up adding 200 hours worth of production time to the book. I would say that is super first world problem here, but if you're a creator that is designing both games and artwork for those games, like that is a legitimate threat of having the project continue to expand in complexity. And like as an artist, I always want to do my best, but then there's the issue of like what is actually needed for this to look good. Like there's good and then there's good enough. And one of my martial arts instructor, Pat the Dragon, he would tell me just enough is enough. I don't need to put more. If you hit somebody in the face and you knock them down, you can only knock them down so hard. So like you don't need to put more effort into whatever it takes to make them bounce off the pavement. Like that's good enough. You don't have to overexert yourself. This is actually tangent. This is actually really great information, like a really good philosophy, especially once you get armored. Like when you start running around with 30 pounds worth of chain on your back, and you've got a 7-pound sword, and you've got 50 guys over there that want to see you and everyone you know dead, the last thing you want to do is get tired. As soon as you get tired, you are fucked. So everything about combat is about not getting tired and not losing focus. keeping your head on your shoulders and keeping your shoulders where you want them to be. Like that is true in any era of war. And it is completely true about creation, which I guess is a different type of war. Maybe war is a different type of creation. I don't know. Maybe war is destruction. But yeah, just enough is enough. So one of my challenges in both this Eberron project and the Spelljammer is going to be what kind of art do I want to have? I mean, the book cover is the book cover. I can go as hog wild on those as I want. They're the cover. But interior art, like I do really fun sketch work and I do some really good inks. Do I really need to make everything full color? There's so many. I know that Wizards of the Coast kind of compels people to go with color art because their books have color art, but there's so many good RPGs out there that just use black and white, just ink, you know, just black line art. Very little grayscale, I notice. Grayscale was a transition era when print on demand in the early 2000s, when print quality wasn't as good and print on demand was super cheap. Grayscale had a place, but it was kind of like a compromise away from, like, we don't want the production cost for full color, but we want more than just line art. And I think that kind of speaks to the quality of line art that was just generally available to the RPG community in the early 2000s, because you go looking around now, there is some disgustingly good like ink art out there, just like black-white art. Like Runehammer, Vern, I don't know Vern's last name offhand, but he's a designer that does all his own artwork too, and he does like all his art feels like stuff that you would see in high school, like inside of people's book covers, you know, like that metal, like that heavy metal scratching crosses into everything sort of artwork, like all his stuff feels like that, and it's like that is his style, and he has mastered it, and it looks amazing. So I think understanding, like having, what am I trying to say? For a long time, I wanted to get so good with color art that I would be able to do like top tier industry work. But in the time that it took me to get to the level where I'm at now, which isn't necessarily to say I'm where I need to be competing, like to do magic art or whatever, but it's gotten to the point where like Blizzard designers, like concept artists are who's being hired to make magic art now. Like, I think I kind of missed the boat on that. It's highly unlikely that I will ever be hired to do any kind of like MTG artwork. And that was originally a big goal of mine. And I felt honestly pretty satiated and okay with not doing it when I started doing the color mana stuff. I honestly think the reason I came up with the color mana mechanics in the first place was so I could do MTG themed art and not feel bad that it's not actually on card art, that I'm still getting paid to do it. It's a total cheat. But it allowed me to at least get over it without having a chip on my shoulder. And I like how my art works, so I'm really loving cartography. Never ever bothered to do such amount of detail and work. Like, it's always just crappy boxes and lines as tunnels, you know, like just super bare minimum. I talk about that, about minimal effort in building maps as a DM so that your team can't tell if you're using planned content or if you're improvising. Like that visual tell to me is huge. I will never use professional maps as a DM. I just don't wanna. I can't sustain that. I can't bullshit you in the middle of a session. Just automatically just throw down something that took 30 hours of work because I only have 15 seconds to find it. You know? I guess that, I don't know. I guess that speaks to my style as a DM more than anything. it's starting to get that. This is really getting that 1960s lava lamp feeling to it again that I had in the cemetery sinkholes, like the large moats. That got to this point as well, and I was discontent with it. And there's a significant difference in style here than there is here. So I am recognizing that there's a disparage between these things, between this here, and what's on the other maps. So to a certain extent, I'm wasting time. But this is the same method I had to go through to get the other maps looking the way that I wanted them to. So I guess it's part of a process. It's not the most efficient process, though. But bright side, this is the last map I have to do like this. So it probably means I'm going to have to come through and I'm going to have to mess with this. I like this bubbly stuff that we got going on in this here. I like that. I just don't know how I would sustain it. It just, it's a different... This is really early on in my water process, so I'm probably going to have to come through here and change all this stuff. And then go back to the other map and change that too. But it's not my top priority right now. Right now, I just want to finish this mess and then fix it. And hopefully at some point I will figure out like how to do it, first try, without having to go back and do all this mincing. But I don't know how to do that yet. So this is where we're at with it. At least I enjoy the process. But once I get all these hippie blurbles, looking good, then I can go through and I can deconstruct and I can break them down the same way that I did with the other stuff. I'll just be able to go through and sweep through these things and do the same thing. I probably have another. I just locked up. I reckon I probably have maybe another 20 hours on this map. There we go, done. Now I'm gonna have to restart. Occasionally OBS locks up on these things, like OBS, the OBS software that I use. This program doesn't mesh 100% with Photoshop. Adobe and OBS Studio kind of argue a little bit now and again, but it's not so bad that it's a deal breaker. It's just occasionally obnoxious. Luckily, I can still save when it locks up. That's makes it completely tolerable. Whew. Things are moving through me. Oh, see, that's cool. All this shit blend together. I want to take a second here and really appreciate you people. You people? What do you mean by you people? No, seriously, that anyone's just willing to hang out here and listen to me bullshit and just chill with me, that is amazing. And I don't ever want to take it for granted. Just want to voice my appreciation. Again, I do this just because I have to show up and get the work done, and being on stream and holding myself accountable so that, you know, show progress being made, and then to get more work done so that when I come back, I've moved the bar a little bit further, like to constantly show my work, and to just to get it done and put in the hours necessary to complete a massive project. It's really cool that I got some cool people like you guys that show up and hang out with me doing this stuff. So thanks. Appreciate you being here. I readily recognize I just enjoy listening to my own voice. Cheers. Right now, I'm trying to figure out how can I crash the Bellevue Summit, the Wizards of the Coast Summit in Bellevue. I'm here in town. Hopefully, I'll get a roster of folks that are going to show up and maybe have some beers with some folks. But I'm already trying to figure out how can I sneak my way into the event without being specifically invited. I sometimes find ways. I don't suspect I'll have any success, but I am announcing my intention. We'll see if it leads us anywhere. But I'm a cheap date. I'm here in town. They don't even have to put me up for a hotel. It's like I can just go home. We'll see. You know, the one thing I wish that we had seen from all these interviews with whoever that guy is from Wizards that's been doing all these interviews, I wish somebody had asked, like everyone was saying, hey, I'm not going to provide questions ahead of time because I want to get a raw answer, but I wish somebody had actually submitted to the Wizards PR team, what the fuck happened to the to the guild adept system? Why did that go belly up? Like the whole promise of the DMsGuild was do good work and we'll hire you. Like what the fuck happened to that? I don't expect Kyle to know the answer to that. That's kind of something that needs to be. That's like a couple different departments that handle that shit. Like what happened? I mean, I'm a creator, so obviously I guess my questions are different from an aggregate web content producer that's, you know, best 10 magic items for a Warlock. Blech. But I'm a content snob. So I mean, if people are making a living off of making that stuff, I really can't shit on their life choices about what they do for a living. But I really wish somebody had really asked Wizards, what the fuck is going on with that? Or like, what's going on with Adventure League content on DMsGuild? You know? Look at me all hanging out on the DMsGuild like an oldie. Like, all the interviews that are happening with people are happening, like, all these, how to put it, the interviews that are being conducted with Wizards of the Coast, they're being conducted by people that have no interest in publishing DM content. They don't want to work in 5e space. They want to own their own property. They want to work out of the creative content or OGL, and all the anger has been, you're taking away our options to take money. None of the people that they've been talking to are people that are earnestly interested in creating 5e content. It boggles my mind. It's like there's a lot of people that make if not a living, serious side hustle cash in creating DMsGuild products, and like that is, damn it, that is what just happened. There we go. Okay, everything's back to normal. Like no one cares. Anyone that has enough clout to be on the please interview me roster gives a fuck about D&D content. They don't design. I think that's a huge mess. It disappoints me. Or like, you got a bunch of people that have invested a fuck ton of hours in creating content that supports your products, but you've just caused some severe damage to people wanting to give you money. So now you've got literally hundreds of creators that put content on the DMsGuild that are making less money now because they don't want to give WotC any money at all because of how carelessly you guys have been throwing your name around. What are you doing for those people that really invested in you as a company with their own creation stuff? Are they just going to be hung out and left for dry? What is it you can offer us to tell us that planting our flag with you is a good idea at all? Like, what do you got to offer us? No one has asked any questions like that. No one with any kind of... I hear that question all the fucking time because I hang out with people that actually want to build content using 5e IP on the DMsGuild. So the conversations that I get into are a lot different from the conversations that I see on these aggregate YouTube channels that get that again aren't really interested in whether Wizards of the Coast survives or not. To them, it's just, this is what I'm doing content for until the next big thing comes along. Wizards can burn to the ground. Who cares? I'm more like, I kind of attribute myself to be more like an MTG streamer, like Covert Go Blue or Legend VD. If Wizards of the Coast suddenly stop making Magic the Gathering and shut that game down, those dudes would be out of 6-digit income. Like their career, their family, their mortgage is fucked. But Wizards is such a, Magic the Gathering is such a juggernaut, the idea that it would go away is ridiculous. But they sure as hell are doing everything they can to destroy the IP. But they themselves, as like game streamers, aren't really being affected by it yet while the game persists. It's similar, but also completely different from people that want to create content on DMsGuild that supports Wizards of the Coast content. Like I don't see any assurances or love heading their way about whatever the fuck is going on with 6E. Like some of my peers that I hang out with online, I mean, I only make a couple $100 a month on this stuff. So I mean, I'm still pretty small fries. But the guys that I hang out with and I'm starting to earn the attention from are creators that make mortgage payments off of the money that they make each month on the DMsGuild. And they have absolutely no idea what the fuck is going on with 6E. Like, none of the content that I've invested my career into for the past 5 years seems to be relevant to whatever playtest content you guys are putting out. What are you doing to my industry? Like, I don't think anyone that's going to be at this summit next month or whenever it is really going to give a shit. It's just, I think that's a big gaping hole in the conversation that it's like silent suffering. We're all just waiting to find out, is there going to be another shit that's going to drop that's going to make everything that we've done for the past 5 years completely worthless? Or is there something here for us? What are we supposed to do? We thought that if we did well enough that maybe we would become, like Justice Armin is like the only guy that's lifted himself out of third-party obscurity to become an employee at Wizards of the Coast, and I honestly have no idea how he did it. Like, there's no path. There's no path. There was supposed to be a path, and they said there was a path, and it's gone. Obviously, I sound pretty angry about this, but again, it's just like this is a really keen point about the selection. Even now, the selections that Wizard is making about who the conversation is going to be with at all. Like they're looking for click count, so they're looking for free PR. Of course, they're looking for free PR, but they're not actually looking for industry experts to have a professional conversation about what are they trying to do with this $1 billion industry. I think they're I don't know. I just envision a bigger, better world, I guess, than what a $1 billion corporation can imagine. So, cheers to that. All right, I'm going to put my bitter hat down. I'm going to attempt to put my bitterness down for a few minutes and just push some more pixels. And Bob shall be my uncle. I got to admit, I kind of like this stormy feel I got going over here a lot more than this hippie blurble I've got going over there. I may end up just washing all this crap out down there with this churny stuff. I want to keep it a little raw, but it's not. I mean, it's too rough. But I want it to. I like. Let me hit save real quick. I like how this looks. I want it to look a little more refined, but I'm afraid of losing the kinetic energy that's here. There's like a lot of just good energy sitting inside of this space right now. I really cherish that. I cherish that energy so much, I'm going to create a new document. What is this? Hold on. Hey, dynamic timer. What time is it anyway? It's 9:20. All right, this is my last 20-minute kick, and then I'll be outie for the day. I'll be back in the morning, of course, doing more Spelljammer ship tokens. God, I'm loving that process. Loving it, loving it, loving it. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I am, aren't I? Ain't I a bitch? I'm proposing to Leanne. Oh my god. Congratulations. Do you think she'll say yes? That's awesome, my dude. Congratulations for having somebody in your life that's important enough for you to commit to her like that. That's great. And a lot of people don't have that these days. looks. Yeah, my dude. Looking forward to hearing what's next. Glad to hear it. That's fantastic. A lot of people say, like, you know, there's no reason to get married these days, and I don't think those people have ever had a medical disaster. Because it becomes really fucking important pretty quickly if you can't talk for yourself. Like, who you got out there that's actually sticking up for you. The hospitals like to have documentation on those sort of decisions. It's actually kind of important. I appreciate people wanting their independence and stuff, but there are good reasons to have somebody that's documented, I got your back. Hell yeah, dude. Nah, fuck my art, man. You're talking about your life. That's fine. My art is my life. She's yours. I'm just happy to hear it. That's awesome. Where are we at? 9:28 it is. I am almost out of time. Let's see if I can smooth up this transition down here. I really like how that looks. This is like how this was what was in the back of my head about like how the water would be looking like all the water, and it so didn't turn out this way for almost any of it. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled that the last part of all the water that I've done for this entire goddamn adventure, I'm finally getting to the type of look that I actually wanted in my water to begin with. Now I got to figure out how can I pull this and bring it all the way back through all this water, and how can I push it back through here and push it uphill and go back to the other maps and have them feel a little bit more like this without completely crushing myself with a shitload of work. I might just have to just let the other ones be as they am, but this one is just perfect. Always start with it crystal clear. Yeah, yeah. This is how I started the map as well, with these smooth little gradients. And then we dumped all the stuff on top of it. But you know what? That is making me feel like going on a quick tangent since I'm almost out of time anyway. I have not visited DeviantArt in ever, but it used to be where I put all my artwork. And so all my old shit is still up on there. It's DeviantArt.com, Phil Kearney. Big bad gateway. Don't tell me DeviantArt doesn't work. Thank you. I have a subscription, I'm just not signed in. Get out of here.
So to start with,
where's all this crap?
You're going to want to think about a basic shape.
Yeah, I don't care about your basic shapes. Get out of here. You basic. Oh, there's my axe. Fuck out of here. Fuck out of here. Let's see. Phil Kearney. Here I am. Let's go to my galleries. I haven't shown this stuff off in ever. Environments. The reason I'm here is because I did about 100 different Bob Ross illustrations to learn how to do environments. That's where all my brushes came from, is figuring out how to do this stuff. There's a thing for Hawaii I did. Come on, man. Where's the good stuff? Why was at the end of that chain? Yeah, let's see, it had that glossiness, and then I added in the shadows there. Let's see if I can find one of the ocean pictures. Oh, this one was fun to do. But yeah, you start off with a basic sheen, and then you can add in like little pock marks. And this is just duplicating and fudging it out a little bit, but yeah, you scratch that stuff out. I mean, it's just Bob Ross shit, you know. This is Bob Ross doing Bob Ross stuff. This is the same way. Start off just with like smooth, and then you just add in the layers of the waves over it as you go along. But Bob Ross is fun to do in digital paint, man. I freaking stupid little houses. His structures are garbage, but God, his environments are awesome. I like this one a lot. This has always been one of my favorites. But yeah, there's like 100 of them on here. So I originally wanted to do all like 1,200 of them. I'm like, yeah, I'm bored. I've gotten what I needed out of this. I can now paint on. I can now just make up stuff on my own. It's, you know, it's as good. Let's see if I can find one here. Yeah, I did, like, this one was my own. So this is the Grand Teton Hill, the Ground Tetons in Montana. But that turned out really well. Yeah. Yeah, that's just, DeviantArt Phil Kearney. It's all in the environmental folder. So, check that shit out. In fantasies. So you draw everything on the bottom of the water. I saw a great everything on the bottom of the water and allow light reflections to gauge the depth and allow the environment to gauge or pass. Oh yeah, that is a good technique tip. Nice. Right on, man. Yeah, that's actually really good advice. I love painting water. Not this map stuff, but like actual. I enjoy this map stuff too. Don't get me wrong, but I love painting environments. They only take like some of them take as little as 2 hours. Some of them take like maybe 8. They don't take long at all. I probably could have made a decent career out of doing environments like that. It's just, I don't know. It didn't call to me. I have a chronic problem of missing the boat and making bad business decisions when it comes to things I'm passionate about, I think. I like to think of it as me figuring out all the things not to do before locking into what I'm actually supposed to do. That helps me from, killing myself. But it also is a big factor on me, like, not wanting to take it too seriously. I don't want to. I know at a certain level this is just an excuse, but I really don't want to kill the enjoyment of the creativeness of the project. Like, I have so much art that I've done that I haven't built into stock art that I got like 400, 500 pieces I could put up as stock art if I was willing to take a few months to do it. But it's like such a low priority. I'm not doing it for the money. I've got a great day job. So I don't need money. I just love doing art. I love making books, but I also want some sort of a future built around it. So I'm having this huge internal war about, you have to treat it like a business if it's gonna be your income, It's like, but I want to be an artist. I don't want to do art. I don't want to do art as a business. I just want to be an artist. It's like, well, if you want to treat it like a hobby, then start treating it like a hobby, son. You can't have it both ways, and you know that. And I haven't been willing to pull the trigger on either path. Right now, I'm kind of straddling the line, and no one's making me, make a declaration or anything. I don't have to commit to anything yet. So I don't want to, but I also recognize not taking it more seriously is limiting my growth spiral. So at some point it's going to become important to me, and God willing, it's going to become important to me before I'm 60. So I've still got a number of years to figure it out, but there is a timer, there's a clock that's running, and if I don't figure it out for myself sooner than later, then it's going to get figured out for me, and I might not like what's figured. I don't believe in the stock market. I know it's just there. People like me are there to feed money into the machine, so people not like me can make a lot more money. Like, people like me are the fuel that rich people use to make actual money on the stock market, because they bet against me, because I don't get the same offers that they do. I get street value shit like 401ks and I can't believe I'm blanking on the name. Mutual funds. Fuck you, mutual funds. like bottom of the barrel crap. I don't get the inside scoop on, 40% rate of return in 2 years. Because I don't have $30 million to invest into a thing. So I know I'm just cannon fodder. So I'm not motivated to build in that system, which kind of just leaves me with, what can I do that can generate income? Well, people like my art and people like my D&D ideas. I consistently make money off of that. I'm just not hardcore enough about it to actually build enough momentum to think about quitting my day job. So someday my day job is going to quit on me, and I'm going to need to be in a place where I'm cool with that, and I am not there yet. So, yeah, I just got really real. I only got 20 seconds left in my session, and here I am talking about depressing crap like mutual funds. Fuck off. Hey, there we go with the timely timer. Alright, that's it. I'm just gonna swizzle this stuff for a few more minutes to feel like I'm succeeding in life for a few minutes, and then I'm gonna bounce out of here for the night. It's almost 10 o'clock here in Seattle. I will be back on in 8 hours to do more Spelljammer ship token production. We are almost done with that process. And we'll be doing layouts on Saturday. And I think we'll be completely done with ship tokens next week. And then we'll be doing nothing but page layouts until it's done. So whether we do that layouting, do all the layouts on stream or not, I honestly don't know. I think it's going to come down to how interesting is it. I may end up just occasionally dropping and saying, hey, here's what I got going on with the page layouts. Here's where we're at right now. And focus most of my stream time on more Eberron stuff. But it's going to be probably a couple months, maybe a month or two, before the full manuscript for Eberron is completed. And I'm okay with that. I'm certainly not rushing it. Stuart's doing God's work with it, so I want to let him take the time to cook. Let cooks cook, man. But I want to make sure I have all these assets done, because like when the book is done, I can take this section and I can take this whole map and just chop it up into its little pieces, and then drop sections of it on each page, like whatever page I'm talking about, like this room when it's ready to go. When I drop this room description onto the PDF page, I can literally just like take this and cut that out as like its own thing, and like that's the illustration. Like the only illustration I may need on that page is this map thing. But like if there's like if there ends up being a space like, like this at the bottom of the page, then I can put a thing in there, like a little whatever the fuck is going on that page. I can fill it in with some sketch art about whatever it is that's on that page. I'm really looking forward to that process, but I honestly don't know how much artwork I won't know until I do the layouts, how much art assets are going to actually be needed to make the book feel whole. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. So anyone that's interested, one of the playlists I have here on the channel is for the Elemental Key. You can see me walking through and doing all the in-page art, like all the interior illustrations for that book. I did those here. That was the first book that I did here on YouTube as a stream. So all the artwork that's in the Elemental Key book I've got it here on YouTube for you guys to see that process, because we're going to go through that same building process and like text pushing around and all that stuff. We're going to do all that here on stream for both this book, Spelljammer, as well as Martial Powers, and then the future books that we put out from there. So it's hella fun, honest. So I'm really looking forward to getting to it. It's a big project. All of these are big projects. Like Martial Powers is the smallest thing I've got cooking right now. It's like 50 pages. With like the core mechanics book that I have, that's 75, and a good 20 of them is just spell charts. You know, I got to rebuild that book. Once one D&D is done and we know what mechanics they're offering, I'll be able to rebuild that book, integrate Theros, Strixhaven, and Ravnica into the core mechanics of it, and extend all the. Thank you. And really extend out all the things that I've learned that I like about color mana that I've been using for the past few years in my own home game. So it's gonna end up being a stronger product. I just need to know where 6e is going to see what's gonna change. So, but I'm really liking how this looks. Really like how that looks. I want to get all this down into here. So we'll be able to pull that off. All right, that's it, guys. I'm done for the night. Later, guys. I'll be back in 8. Like, subscribe, check out my books. Follow me on Twitter at Phil Kearney if you want. But more than anything else, show up and keep hanging out with me. Help me build in some hours, and help me get some subscriptions so I can hit my monetization on YouTube, so I can realistically do this more often and make it part of me quitting my day job. So I'll see you guys on the other side. Hope you have a great night. Thanks.